On this week's episode, was CES up to snuff in 2023? Megan charms her way to success. And is Vince McMahon's return to the WWE a good thing? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our fantastic shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. And welcome to Pop Culture in the year of 2023. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever it is that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Vampires and Vitae, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, the Lakers Fast Break, Demolition Force. Of course, everything that we do as far as what we do out there on Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. Of course, what we do on Pop Culture Cosmos all over, including covering the latest news and trends in pop culture every single day at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And if you can catch all that every single day and like and share and subscribe and tell a friend that if they want the best in pop culture, just check us out at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. She is the mistress of tarot card reading for everything Vampires and Vitae. Plus also as well, Wizards and Wine with Wild Beyond the Witchlight. You got to go ahead and check out her adventures today at Vampires and Vitae, and also as well, Wizards and Wine on YouTube. It is my good friend. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year.
Just great to have you back on board.
Yeah, thrilled to be here. Also, why is the chair for the Monday show more comfortable than my chair for the Friday show? What is that about?
Budgetary cuts.
Is that what it was?
That seems to be the excuse for last year for all these streaming companies cutting shows, especially HBO, who we'll talk about later in the program. So I just figured I'd use that.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's fair enough, I guess. I just have to work my way up to the Friday or the Monday show then.
All right, fair enough. No, that we treat both the same here. They're both equal in my eyes.
I tease.
They're both equal in ratings. They're both equal in radio stations distributed to. So I'm just uniquely happy to have you back here. Thank you so much for covering on the Monday show because Josh is out on paternity leave. So we hope everything goes well with his impending birth of his next child. Hopefully everything will go well there. But happy to have you here, my friend. Before we head into the news of the week and what's churning and burning in the pop culture world, wanted to tell everyone out there that I had a chance to stop by the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle recently over our extended break. And I'll tell you, Melinda, you got to go there. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
Got to go there. Absolutely. Not only from a music perspective, yes, it does have a lot of Pearl Jam devoted to it because of the Seattle sound and all that, but the fact that it has so many artifacts, and I've actually got it posted up on my actual Facebook page, so I'll try to see if I can translate a photo album over to the Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page. Just so many different artifacts from the world of pop culture, from Star Trek, Star Wars, Blade Runner, Marvel, so many different things from the world that you see as far as from science fiction, fantasy, television, just so many different aspects of it. Independent games, as far as that are actually, there's an area for that as well. So truly am blessed to go ahead and have the time to go and check that out. I'd love to speak to the curator or the head of the museum. So I'm going to see if I can reach out and talk to them. But yeah, overall, it was a tremendous experience. I had nothing but a great time right there at the Museum of Pop Culture, right there in Seattle, right next to the Space Needle. It was really, really cool.
That's convenient.
Let's say if you and Robbie go to the Museum of Pop Culture outside of Warhammer, would there be anything specific you would like to see? Because there are actual costumes, a little bit of design sets, but mainly costumes from that are actually worn and were represented in movies and television shows. Is there anything that you specifically would want to see at the Museum of Pop Culture?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, anything Prince related, I would certainly be into. Anything obviously Star Trek related.
They're
Um,
both represented there.
yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, pretty much. Oh my goodness. I think. Well, what about like animated stuff? Like, do they have some like classic Shira and He-Man paraphernalia?
That I'm not sure of. I
Oh,
didn't see any of that.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
That would have been great if they added that in there. But I knew though I do know that their fantasy, just as far as modern movies, everything from Conan to Lord of the Rings to what we're seeing with a lot of stuff out there from the Game of Thrones. There was stuff I think mixed in there as well. But Lord of the Rings definitely was represented well there in the fantasy world. But yeah, I don't think they had too much from the animated world. I
Hmm,
think that probably is
interesting.
the next step. Maybe I
Yeah.
should ask that when I
Yeah,
get a
see?
chance.
There you go. We're producing content as we go.
Absolutely, indeed. But yeah, if you're in the Seattle area, please go ahead and check out the Museum of Pop Culture. I'll be showcasing later this week some pictures from the Museum of Pop Culture on the Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page coming up this week. So check that out. But on the show today, we'll be talking about Megan surprising at the box office. It's not too surprising to me after what has gone down with Megan and the trailer that came out that went so viral, but we'll talk about that and the surprise success to many coming up here in a bit. We'll also be talking some great things, including Avatar closing in on the $2 billion mark. Vince McMahon returning to the WWE board of directors. What does that mean? HBO, in the midst of cutting all these shows and movies and cartoons, speaking of animation, they cut a whole bunch of Looney Tunes out of HBO Max. One thing they are going to be debuting is Velma, the animated series, and The Last of Us. So I do want to hear your thoughts on that. Plus, Gladiator 2 is now a go. They have hired a lead for the sequel to Gladiator. Should this be a thing? We'll talk about that on this show as well. But first, my friend, you had a question before we went on the air, or maybe as we went on the air, I think it slipped in there, was when did we need to talk about headsets? Well, you know
Yes.
what? For the consumer electronic industry, that is this episode. We'll wrap up everything CES. CES was attended by 100,000 people this year, which is actually considerably down, about half of what normally would do. It's about usually around 175, 200,000 before the pandemic started. But it's great to see people live and in person, and obviously seeing all the booths and exhibits. I was a little underwhelmed by what I saw as far as what these manufacturers are putting out there. I mean, a lot of robotics still, a lot of electronics, a lot of technology is being put in there. But as far as advancements or anything, as far as the hot new tech, there's really no hot new tech to speak of right now that people are just like running over to. I wanted to see a little bit more than I thought. I mean, with us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, I always lean towards the video game world. I know My Arcade is now bringing out a whole bunch of Atari related products as far as the handheld and a little small game station, which between that holds between 100 to 200 Atari games. That's great and all, but I just got finished with Atari, the anniversary collection on my Xbox, and that kicked butt. And that was one of the best games of 2022. So I don't know how interested I was in that, and the fact that the Atari VCS that Atari itself put out at $400 didn't sell a lick, and they discontinued that. That shows to me I don't know how much of a market there is yet for Atari. I think the Atari brand is still great as far as selling its name off, but I think it should start looking into making new games for themselves. They did a little bit of that in the Atari the anniversary collection. I just think they need to do a little bit more of that instead of just selling their name out whenever they can.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things though that some of those nostalgia brands are getting better at doing is leaning into the nostalgia, and I think that the more they monetize it, perhaps the less nostalgic we're going to feel about it. But
Mhm.
I think that you really can't go wrong with the Atari brand and trying to bring pieces of those, Saturday morning after cartoons have turned off, you've had your last bowl of Fruit Loops and you are ready. Your friends are coming over. They're bringing a bunch of junk food. You're going to have a pop and chip party and everybody's going to play some video games together.
Yeah, but the thing is, after the great success of Atari, the Anniversary Collection, which went out to all major consoles, My Arcade is now asking you to go ahead and play it on a handheld player and to play it on a micro player. And I'm not sure that's going to go ahead and fly. I mean, it's obviously going to be very budgetary priced, so that's a good, decent thing right there for you. But compared to what you can easily get on any available console that you have already, I think it's going to be a hard ask for people to go ahead and go and get that too. Plus, I wanted to go ahead and mention Arcade One Up, who is always a favorite of mine to go ahead and check out. They're now knee deep into, pardon the pun, getting into the tall, full size consoles. But now they're regurgitating all the IPs they already have rights to in just a full size manner, as opposed to what they had before, which is just the half size and you have to buy a riser to put onto it. I really think that it's not that exciting for me when I go there and I see, oh, yay, the Arcade One Up machines, they're just getting more expensive because they're just getting taller, which is something I think a lot of people wanted in the first place. They wanted the full size arcade machine in the first place, but now they're going to have to pay close to $1,000 for it. That I think is going to be a tough ask. They did get and I know this came as a little bit of a surprise, but here in Vegas, they came with a slot machine with the Wheel of Fortune, which is the most popular, slot machine that's out there as far as the IP is concerned. The Wheel of Fortune IP has been very successful in slots worldwide, and they now made that a home version, which I don't know what that does for you because it's not going to put out any money for you. So I think that would be a tough ask for them to go ahead. Oh yeah, we're going to make this home slot machine, but could also pay you money. No, legally they can't do that, but it's just disappointing because there's money on the table that they have to go ahead and put out, but there's money on the table that they can get if they just spoke to Nintendo, if they played, nice with Nintendo and got the whole line of Nintendo games onto an Arcade One Up platform, or with the WWE, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, they got the rights to some of those old arcade games. That I think is the direction they need to go to next.
Yeah, and I think that all of that makes sense. But I do think that you are overlooking one particular type of consumer when you're talking about the Atari small handheld device.
Mm-hmm.
And that is dads who are in the bathroom.
Okay.
And I'm being completely serious about it because think about it now. You take your phone to the bathroom and you play a game and 2 hours go by and your legs are now asleep. So why not? I mean, I could see the little Atari equipped. Yes, sure. But if you want specific Atari and you have the little gadget, then why not?
You can actually download the Atari, the Anniversary Collection, onto the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, but what if you don't have a Switch? What if you don't want one?
There's 100+ million of them out there. Who doesn't have one?
I
Okay.
don't have one.
All right, I'll talk to Nintendo on that there. Okay. I'll talk to Nintendo. We'll see what happens. Okay. Or got some great friends at Retro City Games. Big shout out to them and hope they have a great 2023. So we'll see. Absolutely. I just think when it comes to Atari, I love Atari, but their nostalgia and the love and the name value only goes so far with people, I think. And so we'll see what happens with Mario Arcade. But overall, CES, the technology, what was shown was nice, but it was just welcome to have them back. It wasn't exactly, I think, a home run by any stretch of the imagination. But before we head on out, my friend, it is time to go ahead and talk about some things when it comes to THT audio. So what I'm going to do first is, coming up after the break, I'm going to have my interview that I had at CES with the head of ThinkRight Technologies, THT Audio. That's Mike Garina. He was with me at CES talking about his entire line of products. So I'm really happy to go ahead and have him on the show talking about that. We recorded it live at CES. So this is my conversation coming up after the break with Mike Arena, the CEO of TWT Audio, Think Right Technologies Audio, their whole line of headsets. And then afterwards, you and I can share some thoughts on it right after the break. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. Once again, it's the Pop Culture Cosmos, my interview with Mike Arena, the CEO of TWT Audio. That comes up after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the show. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Melinda Barkhouse Ross and me, Gerald Glassford. Want to thank so much again, Mike Arena, the CEO of TWT Audio, a awesome consumer value driven line of headphones. If you want to go ahead and check out what they're doing today, go ahead to TWT Audio. And then also as well, you can go ahead, just type in TWT Audio or Think Right Technologies on Amazon. They got a ton of headsets right there for you, including the Victory 250 XG right here that I'm actually have. If you like how this sounds, this costs $40. Melinda, $40.
Stop it. That's I mean, it's a good sounding headset. I'm impressed.
Yeah,
At that
absolutely.
price point, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really have a great time with this 250 XG, the Victory gaming headset from Think Right Technologies. It's available right now on Amazon. I'll provide a link in the description on both audio and video for this. I do want to ask, though, that you've had a great time with your own set of TWT headphones. Please share me your thoughts on everything that you've been able to experience with your Think Right.
Yeah, so I grabbed the just headphone set, so there's no microphone involved in it.
Yeah,
And it just
okay. Yeah, you got let me see, I'm sorry. You got the TW 200s, I think you got. No, the
yeah.
Revo, you got the Revo TW 300. You got the Revo
And
TW.
they're legit. They're really good. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see and I know that they're not intended for this by any means, and I think the cord is a little bit too short. If they extended that cord, they could easily start breaking into dealing with traditional radio, like terrestrial radio stations to carry their headphones. They're really good. They're solidly built. And they have noise cancellation in them, but it's not so bad that somebody is going to sneak up behind you and scare you if you're working in a room and not
Like
facing
your
the door.
husband.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's ever happened, you know? That's
No,
not
he would never be tempted to do
no,
that.
no, it's not a thing he would ever do. But they're really, really good. I use them. I've been producing like a tarot card pull a day on the Vampires and Vitae TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. So I've been using those headphones exclusively to do all of my editing for those videos. And yeah, I'm super impressed. Like these ones here, these are Panasonic's. I can't even remember the price point, but they were cheap enough that I bought like 7 sets of them at once. And the headphones from TWT absolutely blow them out of the water.
And
They're
those are $30 that you're talking about.
yeah, they're so good. 10 out of 10 do recommend, especially with that price point. That's 10 out of 11. No, 11 out of 10. There.
All right.
Go
Well,
get 'em.
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're really good. Like I said, I did find the cord a little on the short side. I would like another 2 feet of cord.
mhm.
But if you're just sitting stationary and you're using them while you stream or while you play, while you're gaming or anything like that, you should be fine.
Oh, awesome. Awesome sound. And I know I did talk to Jamie as well about his time with the TW 220s, the Pro headsets, and he absolutely loves it. Clear sound,
Mhm.
great sound as far as the audible end of it. He uses a lot for his streaming and obviously his game playing because he's always worried because he plays a lot of multiplayer and he worries about people coming up from behind on him as far as in the game and all that. So, yeah, he can actually listen to sounds. They've actually, as I talked to Mike, as you hear in the interview, they actually crafted the gaming headsets to go ahead and specifically target those sounds as far as the audio end to go ahead and detail on that. So yeah, just definitely a great set of headphones, great line of headphones for the budgetary price, the value driven price that's out there. I mean, what we're talking about 40 and 30 and 30. I mean, these are great values right now available on Amazon.
Scoop them up.
Scoop them up in the I was waiting for one of those Melinda closeout lines before I
Oh.
go.
Yeah, no, they're very good. And the price point is I mean, it's one of those situations where it seems like the deal is too good to be true, but the craft and the quality is certainly there behind these products. They're really good.
Once again, it is TWT Audio, aka Think Right Technologies. They've got great headsets. Again, the ones that we tried out were as follows: the Revo headphones, TW300s, the Revo headphones, TW300s. That was Melinda Barkhouse Ross checking them out. And Jamie Monroy got a chance to check out the TW220s, the Ultra Durable Pro headsets. And I got a chance to check out the Victory 250 XG gaming headset. In fact, that's what I'm talking to you right now on. So if you like any of these headsets, go ahead and check it out at thinkright.com, or go ahead and just type in TWT Audio or Think Right, THINKWRITE on Amazon, and it comes up right there for you. Very great deal, a very great value, and again, just a great time talking to Mike Arena. Cannot thank him enough for spending the time with me at CES this year. And I'm hoping that CES will once again be even larger than before. Again, it's still 100,000. So a lot of conventions out there would love to have 100,000 people, but in order for the consumer electronics industry to really get strong again to where it needs to get, I think we need to get back to that 175, 200,000 interest level once again. It's so weird going CES week and traveling through Las Vegas and having such an easy time navigating through the streets, especially the strip, because CES is supposed to be the worst time to do so. So it's kind of weird. Having the West Hall as a new hall was a really added bonus. A lot of great things were there as far as on the car audio end, but I think the really weirdest time I had was when I was pointed from the central hall. I said, I need to get to press. So they sent me to a small substation. You go down the substation, then you get in an electric car, and they take you via underground tunnel right through underneath I'd say about half mile, maybe a mile. And it gets you right there to the brand new West Hall facing Las Vegas Boulevard. So yeah, all that was really cool. It was very interesting. But yeah, it's also all very different, but it always is CES. I'm looking forward to more great CES. I've been to over 25 now, and again, even though this was a little bit on the down low, I'm hoping for better things in the future from CES.
Oh, here's a question for you. Is there
Mm-hmm.
technology that you've seen over your 25 visits to CES that you've
Mm-hmm.
now seen adopted and become like more standardized
Yeah,
through
yeah.
consumer electronics?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I remember when everybody fell in love, the year everybody fell in love with the Android boxes, and everybody and their grandmother had an Android box.
Right.
Yeah, that went the way of
Mhm.
the dodo. But I think the TV technology, the fact that when I was there, obviously when they introduced 720, 1080,
Right, right.
but it wasn't until 4K that you could really see a pop in colors.
Mhm.
And once you started seeing, it first started out with the cameras and started out with high-end production companies there that were selling their stuff and wares to television stations and electronic companies at CES. That you saw right away as far as a pop. But once they built TVs that were price efficient for consumers to afford, and they became, I don't want to say like candy, but they became the norm.
Mhm.
That to me, you saw that evolution change from year to year to year. Something that was rare, something that was introduced, to something that is now part of the norm. I think that's probably the best way I could say it. That evolution of the television probably is the biggest thing I've seen over the course of my 25 plus years at CES.
Cool. I know that one of the things that I'm only talking about this because Sean from Vampires and Vitae and Wizards and Wine actually is at CES this weekend as well. And
Mm-hmm.
he sent me a picture of a camera that had multiple lenses that kind of went around the camera, kind of
Yeah.
circular. Yeah. And he was like, a solution, maybe, because we're struggling with a couple of things right now in our setup that we're not really happy about. And I was like, tell them that we would like to feature their technology. Our stream is huge. I think 36 people watch it. and we'd be more than happy to give a glowing review about this camera, because I really do think that camera with its multiple lenses and stuff that go all the way around it will really solve some of the technical problems that we're having in our setup that we're just not happy with. It's not really a problem. It's a preference thing, I think. Anyway, we had a good laugh over it. Obviously we're not going to end up with the camera, but you know, there are interesting solutions out there, even when it comes down to, you know, the streamer. When you go to CES, really is something there for just about everybody.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
I'm just waiting for that next big thing, I guess. But yeah, what is available now for consumers out there, if you want to pay for it, is definitely there for you. I mean, the technology, the fact that we can now do things from our home that we couldn't even imagine 10, 15 years ago is just amazing. So we're obviously in a great place, but I think we're in a steady pace right now. We're in a steady place right now as far as technology. I'm still waiting for that next big thing. I'm hoping it'll happen soon at CES, but still a good time, a good time. If actually, like I said, easily navigatable. I was easily able to navigate through the CES jungle. But if you have thoughts on CES and what you liked and didn't like, or what was announced and what you would hope to have been announced at CES, please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, 1/2 hour down, 1/2 hour to go here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Melinda Barkhouse Ross from Vampires and Vitae and Wizards and Wine, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and of course, me, Gerald Glassford, here as well. Want to go ahead and talk about the box office real quick. Two quick things to note. Not only number one is obviously Avatar, The Way of Water, holding as much as the first one has. It's not gotten that super tremendous, huge domestic number, but it's well over $400 million domestic because it just keeps on doing numbers day after day after day, just like the first one. And worldwide, especially that international audience, has just eaten it up. Almost, it's over $1.5 billion right now, and it looks like by the end of the month they'll hit 2 billion. Your thoughts on Avatar? James Cameron has announced that it is now broken even. So okay, which is pretty
Good.
hard
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
At $1.5 billion, and yeah, it's now broken even. So now he's able to go ahead and get the other avatars greenlit. Your thoughts on Avatar on its way to $2 billion?
I am not surprised in the least to see this movie doing this much and doing this well and
Yeah.
consistently doing it. I'm really not surprised. Another thing too is the technology that they use to film underwater
Mm-hmm.
here. They had to develop themselves, and
Yes.
it's actually been taken by NASA and I believe Lockheed, and
Yes.
they are adopting that technology to train astronauts for space. And Tom Cruise, it always comes back to Tom Cruise. It doesn't matter what we talk about.
Jumping out
Um,
of planes.
right? But he's getting ready to film in space. And he's going to
Mm-hmm.
be using that technology that they use to film underground in space. So, it, I mean, even if these movies didn't do the numbers and didn't break even, I'm sure that just selling the technology that was used to help film this movie would do more than enough to help them pocket some profit.
We'll make it affordable enough so that it gets debuted at CES in a
There it
fashion
is.
where people can go ahead and buy it that are not named Lockheed
Yeah,
or
right.
NASA.
Or NASA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When it doesn't come with a B or hundreds of billions as far as how much
Yeah.
the price is concerned. So that would be cool. That would
Yeah.
be interesting to see at CES. But yeah, I agree. Just the technology it's driven the first one and it's driving the second one. People are excited about it.
Mhm.
Josh checked it out. Josh wasn't impressed. I know there's a lot of people that aren't impressed, but they see it just to see it. And again, it's still gaining so much money steady, day in, day out, day in, day out. Just, that's why it's reaching the numbers that it has. And obviously, it's achieved a level of success. Another movie I want to talk about before we head to the break or before we head to the next subject is Megan, the horror movie about, I guess, a modernization of the child play
Yeah.
type deal where a robot it's attached to a little girl and wants to protect the little girl and does so at any cost. Megan, with all of her funky dance moves, which already had trended on TikTok and everything and social media, that movie seemed to me like it was going to be an overperformer, especially for a month like January, which usually has a bunch of stinkers and it's very slow. I thought that movie was going to overperform based on that first trailer and the funky dancing that she did, that her character did in that trailer, and obviously
Mhm.
that has grown to be the case where it's going to do about close to $30 million in its first weekend, which was actually much more, almost half, almost double what the studio had predicted. So, your thoughts on Megan? Is she creepy? Is she too creepy for you? Is
Like,
she
I
too creepy
mean,
for you?
yeah, it's not a movie that I'm probably gonna see, to be honest, and it's from everything that
Hi,
I've read
Melinda.
about it.
You're my friend.
Oh my god, it's so creepy. But, you know, everything that I've read and the trailers that I've watched and stuff like this, it feels like a warning about artificial intelligence coming into our homes and
Mhm.
forming those, like, technological bonds with people, and, you know, I just see it going bad before it goes good. Does that make sense? And maybe I'm
It
being
does.
pessimistic about the evolution of that technology, I don't know, but there's just something about it.
Hi,
It's
Melinda. I'm
oh,
Megan, and I want to be your friend.
no, don't do it. It's bad enough that I, feel friendship towards the AI generated chats that you can get into. I'm like, "Good morning. Can you help me write a really great encounter featuring mind flayers for a D&D campaign?" And it helps me do that. But, and I don't want to say you become dependent on it, but I certainly find myself going back to it and looking for input. And I'm like, yeah, I am on the right track. Thanks, AI. You're the greatest.
You're the greatest too, Melinda.
It's so
Uh,
creepy though. Oh my
and then
god.
as it looks creepily at Robbie, ready to
Yeah,
go ahead and
right?
strike,
Yeah.
whatnot. But when it comes to Megan, like I said, her dancing was trending on TikTok almost as much as, of course, Wednesday on Netflix. That dance has gone
Mhm.
crazy all over social media. So I see it. I knew it would have a good opening, and it's one of those low budget horror movies again, trending. That's actually got its own niche. So we'll see. It's probably already by this time next week. It'll probably already have made its money back and then some. So probably show a nice tidy little profit. So we may see a new line of Megan movies coming up in the future just because of what went on this weekend at the box office.
Oh my goodness. And they have to be getting ready to merchandise dolls
Oh,
that are
you know
like
it.
Megan. They have
You
to,
know it.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a next step in the evolution. Yeah, Megan dolls, Megan
Oh
costumes.
my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. All
Oof.
right.
So
She
creepy.
wants to be your friend. But what
She
are your thoughts out there on Megan scoring well at the box office and Avatar closing in on the big 2 billion? Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still a little bit more to talk about on today's program. Wanted to go ahead and talk about Vince McMahon, who, as I spoke to my good friend Mr. John Orlando on the PVD cast at the time, all the controversy and all the things that went down, the lawsuits, the stuff behind the scenes with the shareholders and the board of directors and all that, and Vince McMahon being forced to retire, quote unquote. I said at the time, I was asked by John at the time, "You think this is going to last? You think he's going to stay out of the business?" And I said, "This is wrestling." I believe I said something. I'm paraphrasing myself, but I see this in the world of professional wrestling. No one retires, especially him. It's his company. It was a company that he took over from his father. There's no way he's going to give up total control for any length of time. And sure enough, he overrode the board of directors, put himself back onto the board of directors, and supposedly it's only to oversee an impending sale or impending rights for new television deal, which is the television deal with its current USA and Fox. That's coming up here pretty soon. But it's also could be, as what has been pointed out, for a potential sale of the entire company itself. So he's supposedly on the board of directors just for that and not in a creative role. Your thoughts on Vince McMahon after all the controversy coming back to the WWE? I don't
Well,
think he ever left. I think he was always a phone call away, but
yeah.
it's now kind of official now. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's been going into the office all of this time, and
yeah,
we've just been told that he wasn't, to be
I
completely
agree.
honest. Because you don't really have the WWE, WWF, however, or whatever you want to call it. You don't really have that unless you have at least a McMahon, specifically a Vince, at the helm of it. I mean, look what he did with wrestling in the late '90s, early thousands. You know, it was the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, he also transformed it as far as the business is concerned in the mid 80s with Hulkamania
Yeah.
and actually being the pioneer behind that, the engineer running that.
Hmm.
And yeah, it just seems like to me, it was just something that's his life. That's his legacy. And there's no way he's going to let his legacy be sold off or be, major decisions down the line without him being directly involved somehow. And I knew it was going to be just more than he's going to call his daughter, who is one of the co-CEOs of the company, just saying, "Hey, you need to do this." I knew it needed to be something more. And in fact, again, in the world of professional wrestling, retirements never stick, and I knew this one wasn't.
Yeah, and I think that any kind of sale or new agreement or whatever the case is that they're looking at, anything without his signature on it just feels disingenuous. I think is the word I'm looking for. It almost wouldn't seem right or correct. All of those controversies aside,
Yeah, that's what I was
um,
going to ask. I mean, because you say that, and there's been all those terrible things that have been
yeah,
documented, and things he tried to put into as far as giving hush money for
of course, yeah,
regrettable things done between him and women, and then also as well by employees of his and women that they tried to cover up and didn't tell the stockholders or the board of directors about, that they actually had to do an investigation on him, which caused the forced retirement and in the first place. And I don't know. It's not a great look, but it's not a look that I did not expect. I was expecting something like this to happen,
yeah.
somewhere in the back of my mind.
And please don't get me wrong. I'm not giving Vince McMahon a pass by any means. I'm simply saying in his business dealings, there's just something that doesn't seem correct about any kind of deal surrounding, like I said, a sale or new TV rights or whatever, without him being involved in the deal. Again, with
Yeah, and I agree.
controversies
Yeah,
aside.
we do not in any way condone his actions
No,
otherwise.
gosh, no.
Yeah, but it goes back to what we said a long time ago, or what I said a long time ago about Vince McMahon, is that he was going to die running this company. And I just said that before all this stuff came to light, and I still say it today. He's going to die running this company or changing it for the future in some form or fashion. He is. They're not going to sell. They're going to sell. I mean, there was one time I thought that they were never going to sell it, and they're going to sell it over his dead body. Now it looks like it's going to be sold at some point, either the rights or the whole entire company itself, because he knows he's 77 and knows his future is not as long as it once was running the company. But I knew something big like that wasn't going to happen without him being somewhat involved. And now we know for a fact that he's directly involved in the future of the WWE.
Yeah, or non-future of the WWE. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Indeed. But what are your thoughts out there on Vince McMahon, despite all the controversies and all the stuff that went down in 2022, coming back to the WWE board of directors in 2023? This is something that he was going to envision as far as being a part of whatever maybe impending sale or TV rights deal that's coming up for the company. But what are your thoughts about Vince McMahon officially, even though we all knew he was, kind of there in spirit all this time or a phone call away, returning to the WWE board of directors? Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, a little bit more to talk about before we head on out. Velma and The Last of Us debut this week on HBO and HBO Max. I'm excited for both, being a Scooby-Doo fan and also as well a Naughty Dog fan that loves The Last of Us, and of course the Uncharted series. The Last of Us has been much talked about as far as recreating a great deal of what went on in the very highly acclaimed video games. We'll start with The Last of Us first. Your thoughts on Pedro Pascal stepping into the role of Joel, And Ellie, the young actress who plays Ellie, from what I've seen in the scene so far, seems to be doing a really, really credible job. But your thoughts on The Last of Us as it hits HBO Max?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the girl playing Ellie was in Game of Thrones, right?
I believe
Yeah,
so.
I think that she played that memorable character, and I'm saying that as I completely blank on the character's name, but she
Mhm.
was the head of the household, and bears are coming to mind for some reason. I don't know if that was the sigil of her house, or what the story was there, but we've seen her on screen, and I remember like standing up and applauding at one of the speeches that she gave in front of Jon Snow. So I am excited to see that actress take on.
Bella Ramsey. Bella
Yeah,
Ramsey.
I'm very excited to see her take on this role. I think that she's going to nail it. I think she has chops,
Mhm.
and I don't think that she's going to disappoint fans of the game.
No, no. And she was in Game of Thrones. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's already spent her time in
Mormont,
the
is she a
House of
Mormont?
Westeros.
Yeah. Anyway,
So yes, she has already spent her time in the House of Westeros with part of Game of Thrones, and this is her next big adventure. Hopefully, I mean, the video game has been one of the greatest video game collections between The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 of the past, well, actually this century. It's been one of the most highly acclaimed set of games this century. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on them to go ahead and produce at HBO a extremely good quality show. So that's what I'm kind of worried about, is that they will not be able to live up to that. I'm not asking for Emmys. I'm just asking for something really solid, that it will actually be a great representation of the video game, because this is not like Gears of War, or this is not like Sonic, where you have a certain level of expectation. Just make it decent. That's all you need to really make it decent, and the audience will come. When it comes to The Last of Us, I think people are expecting something more.
yeah, people are expecting this to be fantastic
Yeah.
because the video games are so beloved,
Mhm.
and yeah, I just think that I I don't know. I just have a really good feeling about it. I think that the actors that are in the roles are correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm excited, and I finally have some time, so I'll be able to actually stay current with these new shows as they drop. So I'm excited
Awesome.
to be able to do that too. Yeah,
All right. So maybe on the next show, we'll be able to talk about it,
yeah,
the
sounds
first
great.
episode. All
Yeah.
right. Sounds great indeed. Have you caught up with any of the things that you were going to catch up over the holiday season?
So I haven't sat down for Andor yet, but that it's getting closer and closer and closer to the top. I know. I'm sorry.
Mad
I'm
face.
sorry.
This is my mad
Yeah,
face.
I know. You can harass me if you need to make sure that I
No,
watch it.
no.
But
That's
uh,
that's Robbie's job.
yeah, right. But no, that is still on the list of things that
Oh,
I
I'm
need to
sorry.
watch.
That's your job to Robbie, is to harass him.
Yeah, true, right? And then what was the other one? Oh, I just watched the Nick Cage, The Unbearable Weight of Massive
The
Talent.
massive talent. Yeah,
We
that's
watched
right.
that last night.
With Pedro Pascal.
What a fun movie.
Yes.
It was so fun and wonderfully Nick Cage centric. It was great.
And if you got a chance to see the Renfield trailer,
I
which
haven't.
just came out. Yeah, that includes him as Dracula in a different way.
Oh my
I think it
god.
really is good because it focuses on Nicholas Holt's character, Renfield, in a different way as well. So you
Right.
get a chance, check out the Renfield trailer. But great to hear that you got a chance to catch up on some things. Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
I know
What's up with that?
that one is before Andor,
Okay.
obviously, in my
Uh,
house.
okay. All right. Fair enough.
So there is
And by the
that.
way, for the record, Pedro Pascal tried to get Nicolas Cage involved in The Mandalorian, and he has declined. And you should be glad to hear this, because he is not a Star Wars fan. He is a Star Trek fan.
Hey, my guy, my guy.
Yes.
You know, when he was living in Vegas, we were trying to track him down. We got down to what comic book store he went to and what day of the week he typically went, so we could
Mm-hmm.
invite him to be part of Vampires and Vitae. And he ended up moving out of the state. So, womp womp.
Well,
We
I
were
think
just,
his plans, once his plans for studio went awry, yeah, I
yeah.
think he just, yeah,
Yeah,
said
for
bye bye.
sure. But we were working on it. We figured out which comic book shop in the city he went to, and
Nice.
we were close. We were closing in. We
Well, I'll
still
tell you
might.
what,
Who knows?
Well, the Renaissance, the Nick Cage Renaissance has returned. He's also talked about the possibility of returning to the role in National Treasure. So they just got done with their series on Disney Plus. Haven't had a
Yes.
chance to catch up on that yet, but I hear it's okay. Willow, it's okay. Stuff
Yes,
on Disney Plus.
you know what? We watched that. I thought it was pretty good.
It was all right. It was all right.
Yeah.
It's so funny though, as I'll talk about here at the end. It was actually Siskel and Ebert, the great reviewers. We'll talk about that on the end of the show. But yeah, that was on the original movie was on one of their worst of lists. It's so funny.
Oof.
But yeah, I'll talk about a little more about that at the end. But yeah, your thoughts out there? Just some great things going on in pop culture. Have you caught anything in pop culture? But before we head before we close out the show, Velma, which actually puts front and center one of the awesome side characters in the Scooby-Doo lore, but she is now front and center. Her character has been reimagined by Mindy Kaling, who has been just one of the great sensational comedians of this century with The Office and so much more. But she has re-envisioned the Velma character to a modern age with her own series of mystery hunting. That is debuting on HBO Max and HBO this week. So your thoughts on Velma before we head on out?
Yeah, yeah, I've always enjoyed Velma, and I always thought that she was one of the more underrated members of the Scooby Doo gang.
Linda
Um,
Cardellini, I think, in the Scooby-Doo movies, I thought she killed it as
yeah,
Velma.
she really did, and like looked enough, I think, like the animated character to
Mm-hmm.
really be able to pull it off. But no, I'm excited for the series. I will be tuning in, hopefully
Yeah, I
close to
think
the
it's
day it's
really,
released.
I think it's really a really strong sign to see Velma reimagined for a modern age. I know that a lot of people are pushing back on it because of some of the character, I guess, her choices now. Her choices are more of a modern age and are to be applauded and appreciated. Some are like, that's not my Velma of 1969. Well, I'm sorry. There's not a lot of things in 1969 that are still the same. So
True.
the world changes and evolves, and that's just the way it is. But in honor of her, I thought you and I could go ahead and give out a Jinkies. So, Jinkies for Velma.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
You ready? Hang on, I gotta.
I do a better
Jinkies,
Shaggy.
Scoob.
Okay, say that again. I'm sorry.
Jinkies, Scoob.
There you go. See, that's much better than mine. I do a better Zoinks.
Yes, there it is. Yeah.
I do a better
All right.
Shaggy. Yes. Hey Fred, man, we gotta go down to the gotta go down and go get some food, man. Scoob, are you hungry, man? We need some Scooby snacks, man.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, one time I was actually looking into possibly trying out for a role, but then they gave it to Matthew Lillard, who's voiced the role
Yeah.
pretty much
Well,
constantly over the past
there
few
you
years.
go.
My girls love it. My girls loved it every time I read them a bedtime story with the Scooby Doo there. Yeah, so
Awesome.
maybe, man. But I used to do it in Shaggy's voice the entire thing. So yeah,
Oh, that's amazing.
but need I digress. But once again, if you have thoughts on Velma, Jinkies, it's time for Velma and The Last of Us on HBO Max. Please share us your thoughts if you're excited for those shows upcoming this week. Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But before we head on out, Gladiator 2 is now a go. Ridley Scott is getting back to a sequel, which has always been talked about. I mean, it's not been talked about as like a sure thing. It's been talked about like, oh, that's maybe like, I don't know but I don't know if the audience wants it, but I know it's been talked about. And I know behind the scenes it's been talked about. They, Ridley Scott hired Paul Mescal to star in this Gladiator sequel because obviously Russell Crowe is kind of dead in the series because
Right.
spoilers if you haven't seen this 23-year-old movie.
Right.
Yes, he's kind of dead.
Yeah.
So Paul Mescal is going to bring up a sequel. Was this a good move that Ridley Scott is going back to? I know Ridley Scott is finishing out his directorial career and he's finishing up the dotting the I's and crossing the T's in the Blade Runner series and the Alien series and some other things. And Gladiator is one of his biggest success stories. Academy Award winner for Best Picture. It's a great movie, in my opinion. I know some others think, it's not. something else should have won that year. I think it's a great movie. I think it's well deserving of what it's earned and what's been thought of. I think it's actually, if you got that on a incredible sound system, it's truly is an experience. Your thoughts on a sequel to Gladiator? Is it truly necessary?
It might not be necessary, but I want it.
Okay, well there you go.
Yeah, I was one of the stans of the very first movie. I was all about it. I mean, I love that period of history, Greek-Roman history. Like I love all of that. I think it's a fascinating period where it was brutal, it was ugly, it was just it it could be horrible, but at the same time, some of our best philosophers, some of our best thinkers, a lot of the stuff that we're still using in our modern day, right down to the calendars, came out of that time period. And I just think that when you have a movie that shows you both the beauty of the period and it also shows a lot of the gritty brutality of it. And I think that they did it very well with Gladiator. And I'm hoping for something close, not the same story, but something that will show the layers of that time period very well.
And I'm not saying don't ever go back to that time period for Ridley Scott. I
Hmm.
mean, obviously, it is a very romanticized, pardon the pun, with a
Yes.
romanticized part of it. I really understand. I get that, but making it a sequel to Gladiator, I couldn't have just said like it's an offshoot, maybe talking about some of the events in the movie or relating somewhat distant to it. It just seems like if this is a direct sequel to Gladiator, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to fly. I just think it's carrying a lot of weight. We talked about this earlier in the show about something carrying a lot of weight heading into production, like with The Last of Us. I really think that's a tall order that maybe it didn't need to, especially with an unknown actor and Paul Mescal leading it up.
Well, I mean, an unknown actor and having an opportunity to be in part 2 of a Gladiator series, I think is something that you simply couldn't turn down. I couldn't imagine being like, "Hey, so what we wanna do is, the movie Gladiator? Yeah, we wanna do that again, and we want you to star in it." How could you say no to something like that?
No, you can't say no as an actor, but sometimes
Yeah.
these, as we've seen, as I'll talk about at the end of the show, sometimes decision made on sequels and things of that nature really weren't that bright in
Sure,
hindsight. So
sure, but, if even if they largely rehash the same kind of story in Gladiator 2, I'm still gonna see it, and I'm still gonna be thrilled to be watching it.
fair
Yeah.
enough indeed. So, what are your thoughts out there on a sequel to Gladiator? It's already a go. A lead actor has been hired, and Ridley Scott looks like he's going to get closer to the end of his directorial career with another shot at Gladiator.
Are
What are your
you not
thoughts out there?
entertained?
Are
Are
you
you not
not
entertained?
entertained?
So
What do
good! So
It is so
excited.
it is so good. I'm not going to ever tell anybody any different on Gladiator. It's a truly a tremendous film, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So, what are your thoughts on the sequel? Let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Are you entertained for a sequel? Let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. But before we head out, and before I give you a chance to go ahead and plug anything that you want to or any
Mhm.
thoughts, wanted to go ahead and let you know I actually had the chance. I just, YouTube hits me with that algorithm every now and then. I had a chance to go ahead in the background and check out 15 years of the worst of with Siskel and Ebert. Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, the Chicago movie reviewers who had their own successful syndicated show for almost 20 years, seemingly, I believe. In fact, longer with Roger Ebert after Gene Siskel passed away. But yeah, they were together for almost 20 years from what I'm seeing. It's on their syndicated show. And I'm seeing the worst of shows. I haven't touched the best of shows. So I'm just going year by year by year. I'm seeing these trends in Hollywood over and over again, just regurgitating out as far as that keep on ending up on their bad list. I did have some disagreements. I thought Starship Troopers was actually a good film.
Mhm.
I thought there were a couple others like the Adam Sandler movies. I know the Adam Sandler movies for a lot of them are bad and get raked over, but I thought The Water Boy and Happy Gilmore have obviously made money and helped define a legacy for Adam Sandler as far as a comedic individual. I know that a lot of people love those films and they absolutely couldn't stand it, Siskel and Ebert. But when it comes to watching the trends and sequels and things of that nature, the traps that entertainment industry in the 80s and 90s kept on regurgitating and falling themselves into, and the stars themselves seeing themselves, my gosh, I forgot that Robin Williams made so many bad movies, and Demi Moore made so many bad movies in the 80s and 90s. And Sly Stallone, I remember him making a lot of bad movies in the 80s and 90s. Burt Reynolds, I remember making a lot of bad movies in the 80s and 90s. Chevy Chase, after Fletch, I remember that. See, I
Mm,
remember some actors
yeah.
being on these lists each and every year, making these turkeys, but I did not remember some of them that didn't. So it was very surprising to see them on these worst up lists time and time out and time and time. Oh, I don't even remember that movie. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember that movie being so bad. Yeah, yeah. It's just interesting to see how the movie entertainment industry did and did not evolve in 20 years from 1980 to 2000.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I mean, can you predict what cycle we're in now based off of that historical data?
Well, I mean, I think these entertainment companies have learned some lessons, but not
Mhm.
all of them, because sequelitis is still there, as you
Yep.
and I both know,
Mhm.
for better or for worse. Sometimes it works out with Avatar 2, The Way of Water, and sometimes it doesn't. And to me, it's just about, I think the overall lesson to be learned is, who are you getting to write these films? Who are you getting to write these stories and craft these stories? And are you sitting in a room and actually going over if this is a good idea and if this is a good script? That, I think, is the most important thing. I think Hollywood has gotten better at that as the movies have gotten more expensive to make, and the fact is now that you have options to streaming and also obviously the box office is concerned, but it's still, there are mistakes made each and every year. There are flops each and every year. But at some point in time, I think that process is getting a little bit better than what they were just spewing out in the 80s and 90s. Because the 80s and 90s had its share, it had its ton of really just crap. It's like Wii shovelware. When you had the Nintendo Wii and there was like 10,000 games for it, and like 9,000 of them were really trashy. This
Yes.
reminds me of that 80s and 90s every year, about how bad movies can get. There were some great movies. Obviously, there were some great movies, and that I love tremendously over the course of that time. But man, there was a lot of schlock in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, there really was. And I probably enjoyed a lot of the bad ones. I have a tendency to do that and I don't know why.
Well,
I don't know if it's just me on my quest to become a contrarian professionally or what the story is, but yeah, for some reason, a lot of those bad movies in the 80s and 90s I was all about.
I'll tell you what out there. I'll tell you and everybody out there, if you want to get a chance, check out YouTube. Just type in Siskel and Ebert, best of or worst of, and you'll get all those episodes they did over the years. And you can decide for yourself exactly what's bad, what's good, what the mistakes were made, the careers. For a lot of these individuals that were there, it's so funny because a lot of them were able to overcome all those bad movies and still able to succeed. And some, unfortunately, fell by the wayside.
Yeah, I wonder if we went back and looked at their worst lists. I wonder if any of those movies in retrospect became, like those cult classics because those a lot of those cult classics start out on worst of lists, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there were a couple that were mentioned that did become cult hits. Again, like Starship Troopers, that has
Mhm.
become a cult hit, that has become a
Clue.
financial success for Sony. Super Mario Brothers, we saw that movie was trashed upon its release. That's become a cult movie in and of itself. The Wizard, the video game movie, that was with Fred
Right.
Savage,
Yep.
that became a cult classic, and that was a really trash movie, and that was also on their worst up list. So yeah, there is a few movies you would recognize that were either big budget hits at the time or became successes based off of cult classic status later on in their list. So yeah, you'll see a few if you go back. So there you go.
That's
That's
fantastic. I love that. Something to do later.
Something to do later indeed. So check it out today on YouTube, the works and remnants of Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert and how they were much a part of our time, the movie critics, which Josh has not grown to love now. And I know he talks about critic culture and cannot stand it, but I think it all stems from Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert and the way they dominated the entertainment industry in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my friend, it's been a great episode. You've been tremendous always. Any last thoughts before we
Oh,
head on out?
my goodness. Well, we got a couple of things. So, and one of them, I need to talk about it because it's become a tradition ever since I'm going to say the early 2000s. So, like 2004, 2005, between the weeks between Christmas and New Year's. Well, I guess it goes slightly past New Year's. We watch the World Junior Hockey Championships, the IIHF World Junior Hockey Championships, and we watched it again this year. It was in my hometown of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And Team Canada took the gold medal this year. So congratulations to everyone involved, from the players to the coaches, to the volunteers who help run everything, to all of the fans who showed up for every single game. And the enthusiasm from the crowd was like every single game was a gold medal game. So it was really cool to see my hometown represent like that. And obviously, again, congratulations to Team Canada taking back-to-back gold medals at the World Juniors this year. So we put things on hold, we rest, we catch our breath, and we get ready for next Christmas.
But there are more Vampires and Vitae and Wild Beyond the Witchlight coming soon.
Yes, absolutely. We are back to our live streams tomorrow, starting at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. And tomorrow's episode is the finale in this mini campaign that we've been running. So it promises to be full of drama, promises to be full of action, as most final episodes are. And next week, that means we get back into our regular campaign. So we're gonna get back to Esther, Leo, Liam, and Helen. And Sean, who's been involved in the mini campaign as well as Wizards and Wine, is going to be joining us for the main campaign for season 2 for Vampires and Vitae. So we're super excited about that. So glad to have him on board. For Wizards and Wine, we get back to it Monday night with the Las Vegas table, and they are still dealing with the political intrigue of the Soggy Court. So we're going to get back into that on Monday night, starting at 7:30 again Pacific Standard Time on YouTube.
And I hear that there are actually new episodes of Demolition Force now available in the archives and the video for Pop Culture Cosmos. I was very happy to see that. Big shout out to the entire Monday crew, including yourself there. So hopefully the adventure is going well. I'm hoping to, maybe, if I can, if my family allows me the time, to come back on it real soon. So looking forward to that. And also big shout out, speaking of Canada, to Buddy Gold, the radio manager for Croc Radio, the guy owning Croc Radio in Canada. Kimberly's great station right there for you. Asked him if he knew Melinda Barkhouse Ross, the Canadian radio personality. He said he was excited to hear that you're a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos. So, yes, as we are excited to have you here.
Always. Well, happy to be here for sure. For sure.
Okay. I'm not Canadian, so I don't want to play one on TV. And I'll just, our countries will actually become a greater divide after I would go ahead and say anything.
So not even. If there's one thing, and I'm going to say most Canadians because I don't want to speak for everyone, but the one thing that we are very good at is poking fun at ourselves. So if you're probably fine.
That's good, eh?
Yeah. Let's see. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Change your A to a hey once in a while, and it's going to be very hard to tell that you're not Canadian.
It's so funny because one of our good friends of the show is Rob McCallum and Jay Bartlett, especially Rob McCallum, who lived here in the United States for a time, and he migrated back to Canada. I noticed his accent migrated back into Rob a little bit more now that he's been back in Canada. Funny how that works out. So
it's really funny how much now I can hear the East Coast accent, especially when I have the Halifax table for Wizards and Wine sometimes. And it just catch the odd word. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm so desensitized to it now. It's crazy.
That's funny how the world is, but so great to have you here. So great. So looking forward to our conversations on Friday. So get prepared on the greatest singers of all time. Is it 200 greatest singers of all time?
Gosh, I think that was the list. Yeah, that Rolling Stone did. Not controversial at all. Rolling Stone.
No. I'll tell you who will do some singing. I will tell you who will do some singing. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. She's going to be singing in a rant on Rolling Stone's 200 Greatest Voices of All Time. That's coming up on the Friday show, the PC Multiverse. You are not one happy gal. That's
Well,
what
I'm just I'm confused about a few things, and I need some space to air out my confusion a little bit. That's all.
Oh, and you will air it out this Friday on the PCC Multiverse. So for Melinda Barkhouse Ross, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the pop culture cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great